Hey friends, welcome back to the Grace-Filled Leader podcast. I'm really excited about today's episode because we are going back to the Enneagram a bit and we're diving into some fascinating and often overlooked aspects of the Enneagram. We're talking about the wings, the stretch points, and the release points. These are powerful tools that can help you better understand your type and give you insights into how to grow and thrive, both personally and in leadership. So far, we've talked about the core Enneagram types, and we're going to talk about subtypes on tomorrow's episode. But the Enneagram isn't a static personality tool. One of its greatest strengths is that it shows how dynamic we are, how we move toward growth and balance. That's where wings and the points we stretch toward, often called stress points, or we release toward, often called growth points, come into play. By the end of today's episode, you'll have a deeper understanding of how these elements work, how they can empower you in your everyday life, and how they can impact your leadership. So let's dive in. Welcome to the Grace-Filled Leader podcast. Do you want better work-life balance? Do you get stuck in patterns of perfectionism and people-pleasing? Have you always been an overachiever but never really felt good enough, no matter how much outward success you achieve? Do you want more time for the things that matter most? Well, you are in the right place. Here on the Grace-Filled Leader podcast, we focus on spirit-driven success and share the secrets to having better work-life balance as a busy woman in leadership. Here you will learn how to set boundaries like a boss, find peace of mind, and reclaim your time for the things that matter most. Hi, I'm Tanya, a wife, mom, leader, and certified Christian life coach. For most of my life, I tried to find worthiness through achievement. I spent decades people-pleasing and pouring myself into my work. I was looking for my value through the approval of others. This led me to feel burned out, empty, and exhausted. I had no time or energy for myself or my family. I realized that I was wasting time and energy looking for validation in all the wrong places. But my life changed when I finally surrendered and God showed me a different way. It is my mission to help you start living the abundant life God has for you. If you're ready to become fueled by grace and find freedom from people-pleasing, if you're ready to multiply your time and impact as a Christian woman in leadership, this podcast is for you. Roll up your sleeves, sister friends. It's time to get after it. Okay, so let's start with talking about the Enneagram wings. When you hear people talk about their Enneagram type, you might often hear them say something like, I'm a type 1 with a 9 wing, or I'm a 7 wing 6. What they're referring to is the number on either side of their core Enneagram type. These two neighboring numbers are what's called your wings, and you typically lean more heavily toward one wing or the other. Your wings add a little unique flavor to your personality, and they can bring balance or even emphasize certain aspects of your core type. Think of it like seasoning. Your main type is the meal, but the wing is the spice that adds depth and variety to how you show up in the world. So, some key things to understand about wings. Number 1, you have access to both of your wings. Although you may lean more heavily toward one wing, you can develop and draw on the strengths of both wings over time. The second thing to understand is that your wing influences how you express your core type. For example, a type 1, often called the perfectionist or the reformer, with a 9 wing, which is the adaptive peacemaker, may be a bit more relaxed and accepting, while a type 1 with a 2 wing, 2 being the helper, may be more outwardly caring and involved with others. So here's a quick rundown of how the wings influence each Enneagram type. Type 1, the reformer or the perfectionist, can have a 9 wing, which will make them a bit more calm and detached, or a 2 wing, which makes them a bit more compassionate and service oriented. Type number 2, the helper, can have a 1 wing, which will lead them to be more perfectionistic, or a 3 wing, which will lead them to be more driven and image conscious. Type number 3, the achiever, can have a 2 wing, which will make them more relational and helpful, or a 4 wing, which will lead them to be a bit more introspective and focused on authenticity. Enneagram type number 4, the individualist, can have a 3 wing, which means they'll be more driven and performance oriented, or a 5 wing, which means they'll be a bit more withdrawn and intellectual. Type number 5, the investigator, can have a 4 wing, making them more emotional and artistic, or a 6 wing, making them more focused on security and relationships. Number 6, as the primary type, the loyalist, can have a 5 wing, making them more analytical and independent, or a 7 wing, making them more fun-loving and adventurous. Type 7 is the enthusiast, and they can have a 6 wing, making them a bit more responsible and security focused, or an 8 wing, which leads them to be a bit more assertive and driven. Type number 8, the challenger, can have a 7 wing, which makes them more playful and spontaneous, or a 9 wing, which makes them a bit more laid back and diplomatic. And finally, type number 9, the adaptive peacemaker, can have an 8 wing, which will lead them to be a bit more assertive and protective, or a 1 wing, which will lead them to be more principled and disciplined. So essentially, it's like a secondary type that, while their primary type is the most obvious in terms of characteristics and how they show up, they lean toward a wing that's on one side or the other of that type in how it's that adds more depth to their primary type. So their wing is kind of like their secondary or less obvious aspect of their primary type. Next, we're going to talk about stretch points, and these are sometimes called stress points. So when you're under stress, you naturally move toward another type on the Enneagram. This stress point reflects behaviors or tendencies that might emerge when you're feeling overwhelmed, overburdened, or out of balance. Your stretch point can feel negative because it brings out less healthy behaviors that might be outside your normal balanced self. However, it's important to know that while these stress reactions can feel frustrating or unhelpful, there are also opportunities for growth and self-awareness. Now let's talk about each type and where they move under stress. First of all, a type 1, the perfectionist or reformer, under stress moves toward a type 4 behaviors. So type 4 is the individualist, and under stress, a type 1, which is a perfectionist or reformer, will take on type 4 behaviors, becoming more emotionally sensitive, moody, or perfectionistic in an unrealistic way. Type 2, the helper, under stress, moves toward a type 8, the challenger, becoming more demanding, controlling, or resentful when they feel unappreciated. Type 3, the achiever, under stress, moves toward a type 9, the peacemaker, withdrawing or becoming disengaged when they feel that they're failing or not achieving enough. Type 4, the individualist, under stress, moves toward a type 2 helper, seeking approval or attention from others in a self-sacrificing way. Type 5, the investigator, under stress, moves toward a type 7, the enthusiast, becoming scattered and impulsive or lacking focus. Type 6, the loyalist, under stress moves toward a type 3, achiever, becoming more driven or image conscious to try to secure safety. Type 7, the enthusiast, under stress moves toward a type 1, the reformer or perfectionist, becoming rigid, perfectionistic, and critical. Type 8, the challenger, under stress moves toward a type 5, the investigator, becoming more withdrawn, secretive, or overly self-reliant. And finally, type 9, which I relate to the most. Type 9, the peacemaker, under stress moves toward a type 6, the loyalist, becoming anxious, worried, and indecisive. Boy, does that ring true for me. Understanding your stretch points helps you recognize when you're moving into unhealthy behaviors. It's a signal that you need to pay attention to what's causing the stress and then take steps to care for yourself and use that awareness to then look at how you can call upon your healthier coping strategies. Now, in contrast to our stress points or our stretch points, we have what's called our release or our growth points. While stretch points show where you go under stress, release or growth points show where you move when you're growing and becoming more balanced. So if you think about the word release kind of like, you take a breath, you release. So a more relaxed state of being. These points reflect the type you lean into when you're feeling secure and healthy and open to personal growth. When you move toward your growth point, you start to integrate the positive traits of that Enneagram type. This leads to a more well-rounded, mature version of yourself. So essentially, it sort of adds to your core personality type. For example, a type 1 reformer in growth moves toward a type 7 enthusiast, becoming more spontaneous and playful and open to new experiences instead of becoming more rigid. A type 2 helper in growth moves toward a type 4 individualist, becoming more introspective, authentic, and emotionally aware. Type 3 achievers in growth move toward a type 6 loyalist, becoming more collaborative, loyal, and valuing relationships over achievements. A type 4 individualist in growth moves toward a type 1 reformer, becoming more disciplined, grounded, and focused on practical improvements. Type 5s, the investigator in growth, move toward a type 8 challenger, becoming more decisive, assertive, and willing to take action. Type 6, the loyalist in growth, moves toward a type 9, the peacemaker, becoming more relaxed, trusting, and open to peace and harmony. Type 7 enthusiast in growth moves toward a type 5 investigator, becoming more focused and thoughtful and intentional. Type 8, the challenger in growth, moves toward a type 2, the helper, becoming more compassionate, caring, and protective in a nurturing way. And finally, type 9, the peacemaker, when in growth, moves toward a type 3 achiever, becoming more active and confident and engaged with their personal goals. So recognizing your release point allows you to consciously lean into healthy growth behaviors that balance and strengthen you as a person and as a leader. So how can we use this information to continue growing personally and professionally and in our leadership? Well, first of all, identify your wing. Are you more balanced with one wing, or do you rely heavily on just one wing over the other? Try to consciously incorporate traits from both wings to become a more balanced version of yourself. Number 2, be aware of your stretch point. When you start to notice stress behaviors creeping in, ask yourself, what's triggering me right now? Identifying this will help you break negative patterns and then find healthier ways to cope. Number 3, lean into your growth point. Growth isn't always comfortable, but when you intentionally move toward your release point, you're opening the door to becoming a fuller, more mature version of yourself. And finally, reflect and share. Take time this week to reflect on where you've seen your wings show up, where you've seen yourself going into your stretch or stress points, or how do your growth points show up in your life and in your leadership. Think about it, journal about it, talk about it with a friend or a colleague. The more you understand these deeper aspects of the Enneagram types and the wings, the more self-awareness you gain and the more you're able to leverage all aspects of your type to really develop into the highest version of yourself. I hope you found this content interesting today. I know it's a lot to take in and it just really scratches the surface. If you ever want to find out more about Enneagram or talk with someone about it, get some coaching around your particular Enneagram type, maybe how your stress points show up, I encourage you to shoot me an email or schedule a free consult with me. I'd love to chat more and help you figure out how you can use the Enneagram to grow personally and professionally. Until next time, my friends, I hope and I pray that the Lord fills you with gratitude, peace, and His amazing grace. I pray this episode blessed you, spoke to you, or encouraged you in some way. If so, please share it with a friend and head on over to Apple Podcasts to leave me a review. That's the only way for me to know if you're enjoying the show. Nothing blesses me more than to hear from you. Also, come on over to our free Facebook community. This is a great place for us to support one another on our faith and leadership journeys. You can find the link to the group in the show notes or go to gracefilledleader.com/community. If you have questions or content ideas for the show, please send me a message on SpeakPipe or via email. Go to gracefilledleader.com/contact and leave a written or voice recorded message. I would love to know how I can best serve you on the podcast. Now to Him who can do immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine, according to His power that is at work within us. Ephesians 3, verse 20. Until next time, my friends, God bless.